Hello, welcome, and get excited because today we're going to talk about oil and the resource economy. So when we talk about oil, what we're talking about is petroleum. Petroleum is a fancy word which comes from Latin, so if you know Spanish, some of the parts will sound familiar, like piedra means rock or stone, because oil comes from underneath the ground. And oleum, that's like Spanish oleo, which means oil, again, because of that Latin root. So petroleum, the whole word means oil from the ground. Petroleum. So what do we use oil for anyways? What's the big deal? We use it for a lot of things, including gasoline, which we get at the gas station. We pump into our cars and our trucks, burn it, and that's how it makes the cars move. We also use it to make plastics. And those we use to make plastic bags, things like toys, CDs, plastic water bottles, sneakers, all sorts of other things. And in addition to these, there are all sorts of other things like asphalt that we use to make streets, or polyester, which we use to make clothes. So oil is all over the place. So where does oil come from? Oil comes from dead marine life, so things like fish, seaweeds, all sorts of algae and other microscopic organisms, squids, and when those die, some of them will sink to the bottom of the ocean, and some of them will pile up there. And all that organic matter, stuff will settle on top of it, sediment, rocks, sand, seashells, and they'll build up there, and that pressure and that heat from the earth, those will move together and turn that organic matter into oil. So now, let's talk about the way that oil gets from deep under the ground into our shoes and into our gas tanks. So we're going to look at the steps of that resource economy. First step is extraction. Second is production. The third is distribution. And third is consumption. Consumption. So that first step, extraction, that means pulling the resource itself out of the ground. So with oil, that means the oil is found deep underground, the petroleum. Remember, we said petroleum meant oil from underground. And you have to drill down and pump that up. The same would be true if it's underneath the floor of the ocean. You have to build your drill on top of the ocean and drill all the way down. After extraction, our next step is production. Production means taking a resource and turning it into something that we can use. So, oil doesn't come out of the ground as something that we can use. It comes out as this dark sludge called crude oil. And we have to bring it to a building called a refinery. Now, a refinery is someplace where that oil gets changed into what we can use. The way that works is that crude oil, that sludge we can't use, it all gets pumped into a giant container and heated up in a way that all the light stuff goes up to the top and all of the heavy stuff floats down to the bottom. So we have our propane up at the very top, then our gasoline, our diesel, our heating oil, and down at the bottom the heavy stuff that becomes plastics and asphalt. After production, our next step is called distribution. That means getting the resource, getting those petroleum products from where they're extracted from the earth and then produced into those materials we can use, getting them from there to the places where we can buy them. That's getting the plastic goods to stores, getting the gasoline to gas stations. And from there, we go to our fourth final step. That's consumption. Consumption means actually paying money for and then using all that stuff, all of those products. So in the case of plastic, that means buying it and using it, the toys, the shoes, whatever it is. In the case of gasoline, that means burning that in our cars, where we put gas and combine that with oxygen and produce carbon dioxide and water. We're going to talk a little bit later about the effects that carbon dioxide has once it leaves the back of our car.